so happy to be able to relax for a moment after such a super intense conversation. Sandra, over to you.
Yes, we have just learned about the problems around, or maybe not problems, but the challenges related to the role of having in the middle management. And now we have amazing two guests, Karolina Szczurek from HEINEKEN and Dominika Czyżowska from HSBC Delivery Center. Good morning, welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning. Hello.
We are meeting here today to talk about toolkit that can help middle managers on their journey to support D&I change and the support for the inclusive culture. But before we continue the solution space, as a design thinker, I feel an urge to confirm and then for a moment explore the problems before we talk about solution, which a toolkit can be, right?
And remember, if a host feels an urge, it's already a good sign.
So could you please tell me what problems have you identified before you've built the toolkit that we are going to talk about in a moment?
If I may start, the meeting that we had with Karolina before today's meeting was so exhaustive and extensive that we thought, oh no, that's not possible to take just 20 minutes and talk about the tools for the middle managers. Because whenever we were asking question by question, then another question appeared. What I want to say is that one of the key point that we made out was that indeed, we do have layers of people who are engaged or less engaged in D&I environment in our companies. So at the top, there is the managers who are sometimes, I think, they are forced to commit with D&I strategies. Then we have people with some sparkle who are very, very engaged because they are passionate. Mm-hmm. And then there is this middle, people who are not necessarily engaged, but they also not engaged. And the question is why they are not engaged.
And I think we'll be exploring that further, but just for the clarity for everyone, what's your definition of engagement here?
In my view, the engagement is awareness of the need of taking appropriate actions.
Mm-hmm. Feeling yourself that you are part, maybe not part of the problem, but you understand the problem and you want to kind of solve it as well. So feeling the need, as you said, to take an action.
Good. So you have a clarity on the problem you were solving with the toolkit. So let's continue the conversation about the toolkit and the tools that are embedded into that solution. What tools have you developed to support middle management?
So maybe I'll start this time. In HEINEKEN, and this is actually our global approach and global objective, is to really support managers and people managers in overall. To support with them in supporting and building diverse team and inclusive teams. And with on which we train our leaders, and that is on unconscious bias and inclusive practices. Now, unconscious bias might be something that is very familiar to everyone. Inclusive practices, this is something that HEINEKEN has defined by themselves, and we have 9 HEINEKEN inclusive practices. So these are really some tangible and practical examples, not just for the leaders, but we talk about the leader and the manager.
Can you mention on how or to
Sorry?
Can you mention 2 or 3 of those practices?
Oh, yeah, sure. For example, communicating inclusively, providing equal opportunities, making it safe. So building safe platforms, for instance, for honest conversation, for honest discussion.
Thank you. Dominika, from your side?
Yes, it's quite an interesting question because I thought that the aim of this session is indeed to come up with new tools, something spectacular. But then when I thought about that, it came to my mind that no, we do already have lots of different tools, and there is no need to explore anything else. Just use what we have, but use it properly, effectively, and efficiently. So what I want to refer to is the recruitment process that was, I believe, part of yesterday's panel. In terms of the recruitment process in HSBC, we put lots of effort in unifying, in making the job descriptions more inclusive, in getting rid of the words that may indicate that we are looking for men or women for the particular roles. It's also important to run the unified scenario when recruiting, so that we are asking very similar questions to the same people whom we are recruiting for the same role, so that we are getting rid of the biases. And in fact, I've read recently that there are 13 hiring biases, including halo effect or the horn effect, and we just need to be aware of those.
Just for the audience, can you quickly tell us a bit more about those biases?
Yes, so for example, the halo effect is that we are optimistically look at the candidate because something positive brought our attention, and we stick to this, just to this one feature, and we totally forget about other aspects. On the other hand, on the opposition, there is a horn effect. When we are sticking to something bad, something negative, and then also run all the entire conversation through this, disengagement with the candidates. So we are already biased at the very beginning.
So we've heard ideas on training and how to people onboard, giving guidance on how to behave in the workplace, and Dominika just mentioned some tools in the recruitment processes. And all those efforts are taking time and money, and we want to make sure that it's well spent. How do you measure the effectiveness of those tools? Maybe Karolina first?
Oh yeah, that is. Yes. So, that is indeed a very tricky thing to do. We are talking about something that is not so much tangible, and that really affects people, affects their engagement, their performance. So it's more of a kind of a descriptive or qualitative measure. And I'm sure that many companies, the representatives of those companies, have in place already the surveys measuring the inclusion index and so on. What we do in Heineken, and we've done it even maybe not strictly even thinking about connecting it to diversity and inclusion, is that during the performance management process, and that applies to every employee within the company, we of course look at the what, so the business objectives and how they have been achieved, but we also look at the how. And the how is connected to Heineken behaviors, also as we call them, that really define the core of our culture and define who we are as business. And we really trust, when we talk about people managers, that the people managers should be really demonstrating these behaviors, because they are the role models, and they should be role modeling those behaviors to their team members as well. And then they are assessed based on those behaviors, and some of them very closely link to how they can support, demonstrating them how they can support building an inclusive workplace. For instance, championing a culture of belonging. So really making sure that you build an inclusive team that can really support each other and feel that there are part of the company as well. Having real conversation, inviting and giving feedback and so on. So encouraging the collaboration within the teams. So it's not really easy, and it's of course measured more on the individual basis of a team lead, of a people manager, but this is something that we already have in place. But this is quite a challenge, and it was part of our very lively discussions with Dominika before this session.
Indeed.
Dominika, how about you?
And,
how do you measure the effectiveness of those recruitment techniques?
Yes. Indeed, the question that we asked ourselves was, do we really measure them? Is the general survey enough for us to measure whether the inclusiveness index is on a proper level in our companies? Maybe yes, maybe not. What I think is that let's stick to the recruitment process. If we really want to have the diverse and inclusive workforce in our companies, what we should do, we should, for example, check how diverse is our team. So, for example, we can use the DISC method, ask all our team members to assess themselves whom they are. I'm not sure, probably everyone on the conference, they are aware what the DISC method is. If not, this is to assess the characters, our characters. So whether someone is dominant, whether he or she influence on others, presents the steadiness or being conscious. So I think that to some point we do have the measures, but I am not convinced they are effective enough.
Yeah, why not? I could contribute a comment, maybe a question or two, given that the topic of our conversation is supporting middle management in fostering a diverse and inclusive workplace. So my question would be, and consider it a either super easy or super challenging question, how easy is it to overdo your efforts? That's one question. And the second question comes from Vincent in our chat window. Heineken is a Dutch company with D&I high on the agenda. Does this impact the way D&I policies are implemented in Poland? And what about the cultural differences?
Great question.
Then I'll also start with the first one. It is something that we think about when it comes to overdoing, and also connecting actually to the workshops that we run on unconscious bias and inclusive practices. These are all both mandatory trainings, and this is one of the things I was like, we don't want to push too hard, because for some leaders and for some people, diversity and inclusion, this is something that they really connect with, that they understand it. But for others, it might be something that is so distant that even if we add something that is a mandatory training, that we will push them further away. So there, it is indeed really easy to overdo it. So there are a lot of things that we take into consideration when it comes to even communicating this, and also later on engaging in the discussions with them. So trying to reach a common understanding and make people aware. So it's all about also raising awareness, and this is what I truly believe in. So really creating this ground base for first of all understanding why is it important. And now on to the second question. Indeed, this is where our global approach is coming from, and this is what we stick to, and this is what we follow as well. But we need to remember about our local environments. This is what we call it's global approach. So we combine the two, and that is why we have our global DEI team in the Netherlands. But all Heineken entities also have their own DEI local communities that they work towards accommodating people that are here within, for example, within Krakow's organization, and therefore accommodating the policies to the local environment and situation, and so on.
Global, act locally, definitely. And again, we can see that in practice. Dominika, from your side, any points to the questions asked by Łukasz?
Yes, I will leave the comments about the Heineken off, since I believe it was directly pointed to Karolina. But in terms of overdoing, well, it's easy to overdo in all aspects of our lives. The question should be asked, what can we do to get rid of overdoing? And right now I want to refer to what Monika Jankowska-Rangelow said in a previous session, that we need to understand the benefits and we need to start speaking through benefits. So if we want to engage properly, middle managers, senior managers, whomever else, we just need to give them specific examples of daily actions they can take to be more inclusive, to build the inclusive and diverse environment. So, for example, by speaking up, by reacting on negative behaviors, by speaking for those who are shy. So whenever we are on the calls and we know that there are shy people in our teams, just make them confident that they can put the question to us privately on a chat, and we will ask them. Those are very small actions, but in my view, they are very powerful.
Yes, I think balancing efforts, observing what's happening and reacting to those situations, it's a key here. Unfortunately, we're running out of time. Thank you, Karolina. Thank you, Dominika, for joining us. There's one question in the chat that I want to leave to all of you to reflect. I'm not sure if Ras meant it to be provocative or not, yet I'm choosing to make it one. Can one short mandatory training ever be effective for anyone other than supporters? So I will leave you with that question. I found it quite provocative personally.
And a tiny trace of irony to close our second discussion of the day.
Thank you. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Sandra, I suppose it's fair to say that...
Thank you very much.
Thank you.